Hello and welcome. It's March 11th, 2026, and just 4 hours ago, something unimaginable happened. At exactly 8 UTC, the laws of celestial mechanics were broken. Now, I want you to imagine this. The moon, our constant companion for over 4.5 billion years, sitting 238,900 miles away in a stable orbit. That distance has been drilled into our minds as fact, but today that number is wrong. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has confirmed something that defies everything we know. The moon has moved, not by an inch, not even a few feet, but by an astounding 2,000 miles. Picture the energy required to move an object with a mass of 73 quintillion tons that quickly. To achieve that, you would need an amount of energy that far exceeds the entire nuclear arsenal of Earth by a factor of 10 million. This isn't just a minor shift in orbit. This is a forced migration, and its consequences are already becoming evident. Right now, as I speak, tide gauges in New York, Mumbai, and Tokyo are registering a surge. We aren't talking about a few inches here. We are witnessing tides rising 40 feet above historical maximums. A 40-foot wall of water is defying the tide tables because the very source of our tides, the moon itself, has been dragged closer, and the force responsible for this shouldn't exist. When I first saw the telemetry data from the Artemis FI command module, I thought it was a glitch. Every physicist would say the same Newton's laws of motion tell us objects don't just accelerate without some force acting on them. But then I dug deeper into the data. The cause wasn't the sun. It wasn't a rogue planet. It was 3I Atlas, the object we initially thought was a comet. What we thought was just passing through has, in fact, latched onto our moon. NASA's Deep Space Network in Canberra, Australia, picked up a gravitational wave signature at 8:15 UTC. This wasn't a wave from a collision, but from a mass injection. It's as if 3I Atlas suddenly became 10,000 times heavier than a black hole, acting like a cosmic magnet. Physics, as we know, it doesn't allow for this. You can't just create gravity from thin air. General relativity tells us gravity is the curvature of space-time caused by mass. To pull the moon 2,000 miles in just 6 hours, the object responsible would need the mass of a neutron star. But if it had that kind of mass, Earth would have been ripped apart instantly, yet here we are. The Earth is intact, but the moon is falling. This isn't a theoretical exercise anymore. We are facing a planetary emergency. The data I'm about to show you challenges everything we've been taught in astrophysics. It goes against the very foundation of what we thought was possible. Because if 3I Atlas can move the moon, what could it do if it turns its focus to Earth? To understand the magnitude of what happened at 8 UTC today, March 11th, 2026, we need to look at the raw data. When a celestial body the size of the moon moves, it doesn't happen quietly. The first warning didn't come from a telescope, it came from the ocean. At 8:02 UTC, the automated tide gauge at the Battery in New York City sent a red flag alert to NOAA headquarters. The water level wasn't just high, it was rising at a rate of 4 feet per minute. This was a tsunami-level surge, but without an earthquake. Halfway across the world, in Mumbai, the port reported a sea level retreat so severe that ships were grounded instantly. Only minutes later, a returning wall of water struck. This was the first physical confirmation of something unprecedented. But the scientific confirmation, the numbers that explain why this is happening, came from 3 independent sources, all confirming the same thing. First, let's look at the Lunar Laser Ranging Retroreflector experiment. Since the Apollo missions, scientists have been bouncing lasers off mirrors left on the lunar surface to measure the distance to the moon with millimeter precision. For decades, this distance has averaged 238,855 miles, but at 8:10 UTC, the Apache Point Observatory in New Mexico fired their laser and the return signal came back faster, significantly faster. The moon was suddenly 2,000 miles closer. Pause and think about what this means. If the moon had naturally spiraled inward by 2,000 miles, it would have taken millions of years of orbital decay. But 3I Atlas forced that decay in minutes. One data point can be an error, but in science, we demand verification. And that brings us to the second source of confirmation, ESA's Gaia spacecraft, which maps the positions of 1 billion stars, was calibrating its sensors on the lunar limb. Gaia's astrometry data is the gold standard for celestial positioning. At 8:12 UTC, ESA's mission control in Darmstadt, Germany, flagged a catastrophic navigational error. They thought their satellite had drifted. It hadn't. Gaia confirmed the Apache Point laser data. The moon's angular diameter had increased by 0.8% instantaneously. The moon was physically larger in the sky because it was physically closer to Earth. Then came the third confirmation. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, currently orbiting the moon, detected a gravitational anomaly that defies the standard model of physics. The LRO's accelerometers picked up a vector pull, as if a massive gravitational source appeared directly behind the moon, pulling it toward Earth. When astrophysicists traced the vector of that pull, it pointed directly to one specific coordinate in the night sky, the exact current position of 3I Atlas. The numbers don't lie. NASA's Deep Space Network confirmed the triangulation. ESA's Gaia confirmed the shift. The Apache Point lasers confirmed the distance. 3 independent sources, all verifying the same conclusion. 3I Atlas didn't just pass by, it reached out. But here's where the physics gets truly disturbing. If 3I Atlas is a comet, as we initially classified it, it has a mass roughly equivalent to Halley's Comet, a dirty snowball of ice and rock. An object of that size should have negligible gravity. It couldn't pull a grain of sand off the moon's surface, let alone drag the entire moon 2,000 miles out of orbit. To generate the force required to move 73 quintillion tons of lunar rock that quickly, 3I Atlas would need to be as dense as a neutron star. It would need to be millions of times heavier than Earth itself. But if it were that heavy, we would all be dead. If an object with the mass of a neutron star entered our solar system, the planets would be flung out of their orbits instantly. Earth would have been stripped of its atmosphere days ago. So here we are left with a paradox, a scientific impossibility. 3I Atlas is behaving like a ghost mass. It somehow projected a gravitational field far stronger than its physical size should allow. It acted heavy for the moon, but light for Earth. Think about the precision required here. Gravity, as we understand it from Einstein, is a universal force. It pulls on everything equally. It doesn't pick and choose. You cannot aim gravity. You cannot focus it like a laser beam. But the data from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter shows exactly that, a focused gravitational beam. The pull was directional. It grabbed the moon, dragged it closer, and then it turned off. At 8:30 UTC, the pull ceased. The moon is now stranded in this new, closer orbit. The tides are locked in this high water state. The gravitational constant has returned to normal. This behavior implies something terrifying, something that has the team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, deeply concerned. It implies a mechanism we can't explain. Natural objects do not toggle their gravity on and off. Stars do not focus their mass. Black holes do not select targets. What we are seeing is not just an anomaly. It is an interaction. Something has interacted with our moon in a way that suggests either an exotic form of matter we have never seen or a deliberate manipulation of space-time. And if you think a 40 foot tide is the worst of it, you need to see the seismic data that just came in from the lunar surface. When you drag a moon that size 2,000 miles in minutes, the crust doesn't just stay still. The moon is cracking. And that brings us to the next chapter of this crisis. To understand what 3I Atlas just did to our moon, we need to talk about gravity. Isaac Newton gave us the universal law of gravitation. He said that every object in the universe attracts every other object with a force proportional to their masses. It's a simple, elegant equation. But 3I Atlas just violated that equation. If you input the known mass of 3I Atlas, roughly 2.2 trillion kilograms, into Newton's formula, the gravitational force it exerts on the moon should be negligible. It should be like a fly landing on an elephant. It's effectively zero. So how do you explain a fly pulling an elephant 2,000 miles across a room? There are only two possibilities in physics. Possibility 1, the standard model of cosmology is wrong. We've missed something fundamental about how gravity works at large scales. Possibility number 2, 3I Atlas is not what we think it is. Let's explore the first possibility. Some theorists have proposed modified Newtonian dynamics, MOND, to explain galaxy rotation curves. But MOND only works on the scale of galaxies, over millions of light years. It doesn't apply to a comet inside our solar system. That leaves us with the second, more disturbing possibility. 3I Atlas is manipulating mass. In theoretical physics, we talk about exotic matter, matter with negative mass. Matter that can warp space-time in ways that normal matter cannot. If you had a chunk of exotic matter the size of a bowling ball, it could theoretically create a gravitational well deep enough to distort light, bend time, and yes, move a moon. But exotic matter is hypothetical. We've never seen it. We've never created it. Until today. Because the data from the yellow rose gravimetric sensors shows something impossible. When the moon moved 2,000 miles, it didn't just slide, it fell. Imagine placing a heavy bowling ball on a trampoline. It creates a dip. That dip is gravity. Now, imagine 3I Atlas suddenly creating a dip in the fabric of space-time right next to the moon. A dip so deep that the moon had no choice but to fall into it. That requires density, infinite density. To create a gravitational well that strong, 3I Atlas would need to compress the mass of Jupiter into a sphere the size of Manhattan. That's the density of a neutron star. But here's the catch. If 3I Atlas were actually that dense, the tidal forces would have ripped the moon apart. The side of the moon facing the object would have been pulled much harder than the far side. The moon would have been spaghettified, stretched into a long stream of debris. That didn't happen. The moon moved as a solid unit. The entire 73 quintillion tons shifted in unison. This implies something even stranger, a uniform gravitational field. Think about that for a moment. A uniform field means the gravity was applied equally to every single atom of the moon at the exact same instant. Nature doesn't do that. Natural gravity is always a gradient. It's always stronger closer to the source. To create a uniform field, you need technology. You need a way to manipulate the graviton, the theoretical particle that carries the force of gravity. We are talking about Type 2 civilization physics on a Kardashev scale. A civilization capable of harnessing the entire energy output of a star. When I look at the telemetry, I'm reminded of the Alcubierre drive, the theoretical warp drive. The concept is that you contract space in front of you and expand it behind you to move faster than light. What 3I Atlas did to the moon is a low-speed version of a warp drive. It didn't pull the moon through space. It deleted the space between them. The 2,000 miles that used to exist between the moon's old orbit and its new position, those miles are gone, folded. This explains why the tides rose so fast. The water didn't have time to adjust. The ocean floor literally shifted underneath the water column. The Pacific Ocean suddenly found itself 2,000 miles closer to a gravitational source, and the water jumped. And the scary part, the energy signature required to fold space like that is enormous. At 8 UTC, the exact moment the shift began, the Swift Gamma-Ray Burst mission detected a spike of high-energy radiation coming from 3I Atlas, but it wasn't random gamma rays, it was a coherent pulse. A pulse with a frequency of exactly 1.42 GHz. For those of you familiar with SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, you know that 1.42 GHz is the spin-flip frequency of neutral hydrogen. It's the water hole. It's a universal frequency that physicists have always said an intelligent civilization would use to say hello, or, in this case, to move something. The pulse lasted exactly the duration of the moon's shift. When the moon settled into its new, closer orbit, the pulse stopped. Coincidence? In physics, there are no coincidences with 9 sigma statistical significance. We are looking at cause and effect. The pulse was the trigger, the gravity was the mechanism, the moon was the target. But why move the moon? Why expend that amount of energy that could power our civilization for 1,000,000 years, just to bring a satellite 0.8% closer to its planet? When you change the orbit of a moon, you change the planet it orbits. You change the length of the day. You change the stability of the axial tilt. You change the climate. By pulling the moon 2,000 miles closer, 3I Atlas has just increased the tidal friction on Earth. This friction acts as a brake on Earth's rotation. The days are going to get longer, not by much at first, maybe a millisecond per year, but the cumulative effect on our weather systems will be catastrophic. The jet streams will destabilize, the ocean currents will shift, the delicate balance that has allowed humanity to thrive for 10,000 years has just been recalibrated, and we didn't get a vote. The moon has always been the stabilizer of our planet, regulating tides and helping maintain the Earth's axial tilt. If the moon's position continues to shift, it could lead to shifts in weather patterns, extreme storms, and even major changes to global ecosystems. But if you think atmospheric consequences are bad, you need to see what is happening inside the moon, because you cannot drag a solid rock that size without breaking something deep inside. The Apollo seismometers, which were deactivated decades ago, are obviously silent, but the new Artemis sensors placed on the lunar surface last year are anything but. The moon is ringing like a bell, and the frequency of that ringing tells us that the core has shifted. The moon's center of mass is no longer at the center of the moon. Let me put this in perspective. Imagine spinning a top that is perfectly balanced. It spins smoothly. Now, imagine gluing a lead weight to one side. It starts to wobble. It starts to thrash. The moon is now wobbling. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has detected a vibration anomaly, and the moon is starting to nod back and forth in the sky. This wobble is tiny right now, but physics tells us it will amplify. And as it amplifies, it will put stress on the lunar crust. Which brings me to the data that just came in 5 minutes ago from the European Southern Observatory. While we were watching the tides, we missed what was happening on the lunar surface. A new crater has just appeared, but nothing hit the moon. This crater exploded from the inside out. Everything I've shown you, the 20,000-mile shift, the 40-foot tides, the impossible physics, all of that was documented by 9 UTC this morning. But we're not done yet. At 10:45 UTC, just minutes before I started recording this, the European Southern Observatory's VLT, Very Large Telescope, in Chile, detected something else, something that wasn't in any prior data, something that wasn't supposed to exist. A new crater has just appeared on the moon, but nothing hit it. Let me repeat that. No asteroid impacted the surface. No meteorite struck the lunar regolith. The space around the moon was empty. Yet, a crater the size of a city block just exploded into existence near the Dow crater. The debris didn't fly up. It flew sideways. It ejected horizontally, skimming the surface for miles before settling. That trajectory is impossible for an impact. That trajectory is only possible if the force came from underneath. The moon is cracking from the inside out. The gravitational stress of being yanked 2,000 miles closer has fractured the lunar crust. We are seeing moonquakes on a scale never before recorded. The Richter scale doesn't even apply here. These are structural failures of a planetary body. And then came the spectral analysis of the dust plume. The VT spectrograph analyzed the light reflecting off that debris cloud. It should have shown silicon, oxygen, iron standard lunar rock. Instead, it showed an unmistakable signature of something else, helium-3. For decades, we've known that the moon has helium-3 inches its soil, deposited by the solar wind over billions of years, but it's in trace amounts microscopic. This plume is pure. It's as if a pressurized reservoir of gas just ruptured. And that changes everything because natural geology does not create pressurized reservoirs of helium-3 inside a dead rock. If this is natural, then our understanding of lunar geology is wrong by a factor of 1 billion. If this is not natural, then 3I Atlas didn't just move the moon, it unlocked it. It triggered a release mechanism. Think about the implications. A comet arrives. It uses directed gravity to pull a moon closer. The stress cracks the surface, and suddenly, the most valuable energy source in the solar system, the fuel for future fusion reactors, starts venting into space. Is this a mining operation? Is 3I Atlas harvesting? Or is it something worse because the venting isn't stopping, it's accelerating? The plume is now visible to amateur astronomers with backyard telescopes. And as that gas vents, the moon's mass is decreasing, which means its orbit is destabilizing further. We are watching a celestial body unravel in real time. And the object responsible, 3I Atlas, has just changed course again. It is no longer tracking toward the sun. It has turned. It is now tracking toward Earth. Let's establish what we know with absolute certainty. The moon is physically 2,000 miles closer to Earth. The tides are defying every model NOAA possesses. A localized gravitational field, verified by 3 space agencies, caused this shift. And now, the lunar surface is venting pure helium-3. These are not theories. These are documented observations. But one question remains unanswered. One question that NASA's emergency briefing carefully avoided. Why expose the core? If you wanted to destroy the moon, you would hit it with kinetic energy. You wouldn't gently pull it closer and crack it open like an egg. Because the answer determines everything. If this is a natural event, then physics as we know it has collapsed. If this is a mining operation, then we are witnessing a Type 2 civilization harvesting resources in our backyard. But if this is a prelude, if moving the moon was just a calibration test for moving the Earth, then the 40-foot tides are the least of our problems. There is no middle ground. One of these is our reality. And the clock is running right now. As you watch this, 3I Atlas is accelerating. Its new trajectory brings it into Earth's orbit in exactly 18 hours. The telescopes are pointed. The detectors are alive. The moon was a lock. 3I Atlas just found the key. And whatever's inside that venting crater we're about to meet it.